Okay, so I've got my Sky subscription, I've got the BT Sport add-on package, I've got Amazon Prime Video, I've got Apple TV, I've got Netflix, I've got Hulu, I've got Now TV, I've got BritBox, I've got HBO Max and Disney Plus. Finally, I am ready for the big Premier League action. So, what game is on tonight? Bournemouth v Nottingham Forest. Oh, new season of Succession. With the recent news that Apple are looking to expand into the live sports market by bidding for Premier League broadcasting rights when the new deal is tabled in 2025, fans in the UK are looking at yet another financially awkward headache if they wish to watch their very own top-flight domestic football league on the comfort of their television screens. It goes without saying that streaming services are big business and content is king, with the Premier League featuring 380 matches a season, each one potentially being a juggernaut live event pulling in viewers in the millions in the UK alone. It's no surprise that Amazon have already fired the first shot in the Premier League streaming rights wars, with 20 games a season available on Amazon Prime Video. And no surprise that the rumours of Netflix and Apple TV getting involved come the next round of talks aren't going anywhere. Of course, Amazon owning the rights to some Premier League matches each season has not meant the demise of the Premier League product on traditional TV, with the rest of their eligible to air matches featuring on Sky Sports and BT Sport in the UK. Doing the math paints a problematic picture. To watch all the games the Premier League permits, a person in the UK needs Sky TV with a Sky Sports subscription, BT Sports and an Amazon Prime account. Finding the prices for all of these services should be easy, but the TV market purposefully fragments their prices to cause confusion amongst potential customers, making it hard for them to decipher what a good deal even is. It's one price if you get Sky TV alongside Sky Broadband, it's another if you get Sky TV on its own, it's another with BT Sport as an add-on, it's another if you're a new customer, and so on and so forth. Most packages are one price for 18 months, before then rising following that period, and with the emergence of services like Now TV, who provide day passes to watch Sky Sports without having a Sky TV subscription, it's basically impossible for me to sit here and actually give you a hard number. Regardless, we can ballpark this out and say that Sky TV with Sky Sports and BT Sports is around £85 a month, or £1,020 for the entire year. Amazon aired 10 of their 20 games in October and the other 20 over the Christmas period in December. So if you sneakily only sign up for Amazon Prime for those months, that's another £18. Oh, add on the TV license all houses in the UK are legally required to purchase if they watch any live TV, which is £150, and we come to an estimated grand total of £1,188 per year to watch all the eligible Premier League games in the UK. There might be some slightly better deals I've missed, or maybe a slightly cheaper package to be had if you complain for 2 hours at Sky down the phone, but either way, it's an eye-watering sum when broken down like this, and as already mentioned, this looks like it may climb even higher, with big players such as Netflix and Apple attempting to enter the market. It's the year 2023, and everyone knows that streaming services are so lucrative, so in demand, and such big business, so the question must be asked, where is the Premier League's streaming service? A streaming service they could independently own, control, and collect 100% of the profits from. A streaming service that puts all the Premier League games under one place, under one easy subscription, without the need for a reliance on Sky or BT Sport, and that can easily sit alongside all the other subscriptions everyone already has. Who says no? While a thought-provoking idea on paper, If it were to ever come to fruition, it would be the biggest change to UK broadcasting the sport has ever seen. For it to happen, the Premier League needs to be convinced that it would all be worth it. And before we evaluate that, we need to look at the position they are already in. The Premier League sells its broadcasting rights in blocks of 3 years, and the latest deal signed in 2022 for the 2022 to 2025 period will earn them £5.1 billion domestically, or £1.7 billion per season. The rights to broadcast the English Premier League internationally were also sold for a further £5 billion over the same 3-year period. Sky, BT and Amazon are all more than willing to pay their shares of this eye-watering figure due to the audience the Premier League draws in. In the 2020 to 2021 season, studies show that around 40% of the entire UK population watched some form of Premier League coverage, and more than 50 matches drew more than 2 million viewers at a time. And although it's hard to find more recent and precise numbers, it doesn't look like these figures are showing any signs of slowing down. August 2022 saw an episode of Monday Night Football on Sky Sports, which covered Man United's 2-1 victory over Liverpool, reach its highest viewing figures for the programme in a decade. The nation's insatiable appetite for the game, seen in both the league's unbelievably strong live attendances and viewing figures of watchers at home, has fueled the Premier League's rise in becoming the richest, most watched league in the entire world. Surely a Netflix-style streaming service is a no-brainer. Well, let's take a look at how Netflix currently do it. As of Q4 2022, Netflix had an estimated 231 million paid users subscribed to their service, leading to a 2022 fiscal year revenue of $31.6 billion US. Easy money, quids in. Premier League, it's time to get on this shit. Well, the problem for Netflix is the amount they spend in keeping their service operating. Just think about absolutely everything that has gone into making Netflix the service that it is today, and everything Netflix needs to do to maintain a service for 231 million users, and try to apply this thinking to the daunting task the Premier League would have to face. The licensing of expensive servers around the world to host the network, the deals, partnerships and sponsors needed to provide the technology that holds the framework for the entire service. Research, design, scripting, testing, legal work and everything else that goes into creating a streaming app to work across all platforms in countries around the world. You'd need a sales team, dedicated marketing, customer service, HR, and huge amounts of expensive, experienced resource with leading expertise. And all of this is reflected in Netflix's operating costs. The total operating expenses for Netflix, which has seen a year-on-year increase every year for the past 5 years, sits at $25 billion US for fiscal year 2022. That's 85% of the revenue generated for that year gone right there. The Premier League doing its own version of Netflix seems simple on paper, but of course it's anything but. It's not even like Netflix hit the ground running with its live service and it was a total and instant success from the start. Like all companies growing and expanding into a changing market, Netflix has taken many missteps and has felt many financial and PR blunders in its many years of growth as an organisation. The Premier League would have to navigate their way through all of this from the ground up as it ventures into totally uncharted territory for itself. What I sneakily didn't mention about Netflix's operating costs is of course the huge swathes of money Netflix spends to create content for its own streaming service. Not only do Netflix have to buy the rights for shows people actually want to watch, but they need to supplement their library with original shows. New content is a necessity for streaming services who must give customers a good enough reason to allow their subscriptions to roll over for another month and not hit the cancel button. Interestingly, this is actually where the Premier League has a massive upper hand. The Premier League's content is Well, the Premier League. There's 380 matches a season, and the Premier League already has its own production company to handle many elements that go into the way the league is presented on TV. They have the relationships with their camera operators, the audio engineers, the broadcasting experts, and of course, the football clubs themselves. And they have, potentially, 380 matches worth of content to sell you each season. But we still need to pump the brakes a little bit here, because the further down the rabbit hole you go, the more things you realise you need to consider. Firstly, Sky Sports, alongside BT Sport and now Amazon, have set the bar when it comes to the standard of presentation the viewing public expect when tuning in to watch the football. All the live coverage elements that seem so rudimentary that we take them for granted will now need to be fulfilled by the Premier League themselves. You need a build-up, you need a pre-match programme, you need commentators, you need on-air graphics and statistics, you need a halftime show, complete with analysis and recognisable pundits and personalities. You need post-match content, you need a highlights catch-up show, you need a live goals show for the simultaneous 3 p.m. kickoffs. Currently, the Premier League doesn't need to sweat any of this. They just feed the video to the broadcasters who handle the rest. We need to think even deeper. The Premier League itself, as a self-sustaining company in their own right, do an awful lot of marketing and advertising in-house, but let's not forget that Sky and BT and now Amazon also do a huge chunk of this inadvertently for them. It sounds silly, but it's a vital part of the entire ecosystem. Sky, BT and Amazon spend huge amounts of money, time and resources in advertising the Premier League games that they have spent so much money purchasing, which in turn advertises the Premier League itself, both domestically and globally. So not only would the Premier League now need to handle the entire broadcasting procedure that goes into each match, but the responsibility of marketing and keeping up the image the Premier League has found major success with will also solely be placed into their hands. Let's think further. What do the Premier League do during the off-season? Streaming services convince their users to continuously subscribe for the next month and the next month and the next month by strategically dropping content throughout the year. Huge amounts of research and careful analytics goes into what content should drop and when for maximum uptake and interest. Sky and BT avoid this by, well, firstly, locking people into 18-month contracts, and secondly, by supplementing the lack of football during the summer with other sports content. Come for the Premier League, stay for the Ashes coverage. Come for the Premier League, stay for the boxing or this UFC main event that we've been advertising to you for months. The 2022-23 Premier League season ends on the 23rd of May, and the 2023-24 season begins on the 12th of August. There's an 11-week period here with just no matches. The Premier League would have to produce or license content to fill this void to try and stem the flow of mass cancellations. It's not just the simple fact that 3 months with a massive decrease in revenue isn't ideal, it's the worrying implication that once those people are gone over the summer, there's no guarantee they'll definitely come back from the start of the new season. If a Netflix-style Premier League were to happen, it would mean that the Premier League would be in total control of their own product. But the question is, do they even need to be? The Premier League is already, quite easily, the richest and most watched league out of any football league in the world. The Premier League rakes in £10 billion every 3 seasons with comparatively very little risk, as aforementioned broadcasters like Sky, BT and Amazon already share the workload. Destroying all of this would be an absolutely almighty risk, but is the money that could be made worth it all? Again, the information isn't totally available and easily accessible to analyse, and I'm not in a position of expertise to avoid making some big assumptions with my back-of-the-napkin calculations, but I think we can get a rough estimate here to get an idea. So please, remain seated, get comfortable and sit tight for some rubbish maths. And I apologise in advance if I get anything wrong here. This article from December 2022 states that Netflix's content budget for 2023 will be $17 billion. If we take the total operating expenses for 2022, which sits at 25 billion US dollars, and net off this content budget, that leaves us with around 8 billion US dollars that Netflix spends on all other aspects of its operation. Marketing, technology, administration, all the things we just mentioned earlier. The current international deal in the Premier League rakes in around £10 billion or 14 billion US dollars over a 3-year period. Divide that number by 3, and that means the Premier League currently rakes in, globally, 4.6 billion US dollars a year. If we ignore a potentially barren off-season and the big holes in content a Premier League-style Netflix would need to fill, and we assume the Premier League Netflix would charge an industry standard of £8 or $10 US a month, this means that for a Premier League Netflix to match the current deal they already have with their international broadcasters, they would need 105 million subscribers. From its initial launch in 2011, it took Netflix 6 years to reach 100 million subscribers, and as mentioned previously, it wasn't 6 smooth-sailing, exponentially growing years. It was 6 years of many missteps, miscalculations, and lessons that had to be learned. Look, yes, I've assumed a lot here. The Premier League is a powerhouse that would probably be able to charge more than $10 US a month. The Premier League is also a hugely recognisable and successful brand, and unlike Netflix emerging from the smouldering ashes of Blockbuster, the public most likely wouldn't need anywhere near as much convincing to hop on board. Doubly so if this was the only option to watch the games. But even still, there is absolutely no chance that if the Premier League flick the switch tomorrow, that every single one of the current customers who purchase cable TV would just immediately switch to their new streaming service. No matter how good the football may be, any radical change like this would provoke the current customer base into rethinking their purchasing behaviour. Do I really need the Premier League on my TV every weekend, or should I just buy a season ticket? Or, I don't know, go down the pub? Do I need Premier League Netflix every single month? Maybe I'll wait and see how the service is, see how I feel living without it. I'm sure there's not an insignificant portion of the current Sky Sports subscription customer base that only really have Sky Sports because they got a deal with it alongside other Sky channels that they wanted to watch. Who's to say that this subsection of customers immediately switches over to a brand new streaming service? As said, the Premier League is such a global powerhouse that I'm confident they'd hit the ground running much faster than the emergence of something like Netflix did. But still, these are all questions that the Premier League needs to ask and needs to assess the consequential risks. With all that said, the road Amazon have taken recently is much more likely. Services jumping on board, not with the aim of taking all Premier League games, but taking 10 or maybe 20 of them at a time and testing the waters to see how it goes. Maybe we'll even see the Premier League chip in one day and start small with a handful of games debuting on their live streaming service, where the rest remain on the safe bet, which is Sky Sports and BT Sport. But there's one more aspect I've yet to mention so far, and it's probably the most important one. What do the 20 football clubs that make up the Premier League each season think about all of this? The Premier League runs its product in a very democratic way. When the league wants to make a change regarding how the league is operated, both on and off the pitch, they must put it to a vote in which all 20 clubs have equal footing. Just recently, in March 2022, the request to increase the maximum amount of substitutions permitted per game from 3 to 5 was democratically voted in after strong resistance in previous years, with a vote of 14 clubs to 6 in favour of the change this time around. We've seen the dates of the summer transfer window change in this way too, where there was a brief period of time where the summer transfer window ended before the first game of the season, but then this was reversed in a future vote. Any change regarding broadcasting rights, which makes up the majority of revenue at all Premier League clubs, would absolutely have to go to a vote. Which clubs are going to vote for this? There may be money in a Premier League style streaming service. The prize of total control and total profits must make the league and the clubs froth at the mouth, but it would only be possible with a substantial initial period of risk and lower revenue. Let's just take the 6 years I used as an example. Right now, the broadcasting money clubs receive is stable and is ever increasing year on year. Even if the league did make a strong argument to suggest that a hit in revenue now would be worth more revenue than ever down the line, which clubs are actually going to vote for this? The clubs who are already throwing around $300k a week contracts to its players? The clubs who are already throwing around £100 million transfer fees? The clubs who are already, in some cases, right on the border of being profitable organisations if they were ever profitable in the first place? I see absolutely no world in which the collective league gets together and agrees to take an unfathomably massive risk alongside an almost guaranteed lower take from broadcasting revenues for 6 years. It's just not going to happen because there's no need. As already mentioned, the Premier League kind of has already won. It's the biggest and richest league in the entire world. The revenue increases year on year and the clubs can predict it and have planned and structured themselves around it. The almighty risk just seems far too substantial and unnecessary, even if the likelihood may be a better deal for them in the end. Looking past the money, the revenues, operating costs and the financial year profits, there is a real impact I have neglected to mention so far, and that is the human side to all of this. The British public, the fans, and the lovers of the Premier League. Top flight football is slowly but surely drifting away from the sport's affiliation with its original working class roots and communities, with the increasing rise of ticket prices across virtually every ground up and down the country, and now the rising cost to even sit at home and watch your beloved club on the box. We're a long way away from 1992, which was the last time, outside of a special case of a brief window during the pandemic, that Premier League football was available on free-to-air terrestrial TV. When Sky bought the rights to air all available Premier League matches in 1992, it was inevitable that the injection of cash into the English top flight would bring richer clubs, better players and a rise in the quality of football, at the expense of pricing out many of the people those clubs were built upon. When Sky bought the rights to all eligible Premier League matches, the company held a monopoly on top-flight football on TV in the UK. Sky, and Sky alone, were the only company who held the rights to the Premier League until the 2007-2008 season, where the EU Court of Administration stepped in. You see, European competition law states that exclusive arrangements to a product such as the Premier League were in breach of EU ruling. Kind of makes sense, right? Monopolies are almost always bad for trade, bad for the market, and therefore ultimately bad for the consumer. If customers have no choice on where they can put down their hard-earned cash, what's to stop giant monopolies hoovering up all that people love and then letting it stagnate, with the assurance that customers have no other choice and cannot go elsewhere? While this is a fantastic venture on paper, when it comes to football on TV in the UK, this has actually had some disastrous effects. This table from a study written by authors from the Department of Economics at the University College of Cork reveals the whole story. The price broadcasters had to pay the Premier League per live match has risen year on year since 1983. And what's interesting here is the holders of the rights from 2007. In 2007, the EU ruled Sky's exclusive arrangement with the Premier League was unlawful and forced the Premier League to sell its rights to the games to at least one other broadcaster and break the monopoly. From the deal penned for the 2007-2010 period, we can see that Sky shared the Premier League rights with the very short-lived Setanta Sports, and following that, a 3-year period where they shared rights with ESPN. From 2013 onwards, we can see the landscape we're all very familiar with, and that's the split in rights between Sky and BT, but the point is, this hasn't helped the customer in any tangible way. Okay, there may be an argument here regarding the rise in quality of presentation and production of Premier League matches, but in reality, who cares? What really matters to the consumer is what games are on and how much we have to pay for each one. And the EU ruling that the rights must be split to avoid a monopoly has categorically not helped in this regard. Before, you may have had to bite the bullet and pay Sky's outrageous prices, but if you did, that was it. One package, one deal, one channel, all the games. Now, it's no longer the case. You need 3, and it's only 3 for now, services to watch all of the games because multiple broadcasters, all bidding for Premier League rights, has allowed the Premier League to jack their prices to astronomical levels, which of course means the broadcasters have to make that money back by charging the customers more. The types of working class people who built the game increasingly find themselves no longer being able to even watch it. It's shit. It's unfair and it feels wrong. But, well, in a way, aren't we all loving it? Hear me out here, but is anyone actually doing anything wrong here? Sky, BT and Amazon have all set their prices and, well, the data shows, as a nation, we're more than happy to pay it. There's no trick here, there's no deception, and I'm not sure that there's even an awful lot wrong. The demand for Premier League action is fucking sky high, and we love it so much that we're paying for it. If we weren't, the rights would be worth less, and well, we'd pay less. Just look at the rise of ticket prices across the league in recent years as well. Ticket prices in the Premier League are at the highest that they've ever been. And the nation still flocks to all the games and sells out every single Premier League stadium practically every single week. Who can we even really blame here? Furthermore, the Premier League isn't just taking our money and running. The split of TV broadcasting rights is quite easily the fairest distribution of any of the top 5 European leagues. It's led to every club in the league getting their fair share of our money each season, and it's strengthened the league throughout. If we compare this to other leagues such as La Liga, where the top 2 clubs each season, almost always Real Madrid and Barcelona, get a ridiculously large share of the TV money, while the rest of the clubs in the league get proportionally pennies. The money the public spends via the broadcasters that we pay is the leading factor in the Premier League's domination as the richest league in the world. To make my point, let's have a look at Arsenal's revenue trend for the last 9 or so years. All the data here is collected by Swiss RAMBLE on Twitter, who is amazing at this stuff, and his work deserves your attention if you're interested in football finance in any capacity. There's a link to his Twitter, his Substack, and the article I'm referencing in the description below. The yellow bar on this graph represents the broadcasting revenue the club has received each year since 2012. Every single year, the club earns most of its money through TV rights, the very rights I've spent this entire video discussing. The green bar is match day revenue from ticket sales and other concessions on match day, which makes up a massive chunk of revenue as well. And, this is Arsenal, a big club with major financial backing and the ability to pull in large, commercially lucrative deals. Smaller clubs have an even higher percentage of broadcasting money and matchday fees making up their revenue. Nottingham Forest just came up from the Championship and they can spend over £120 million on players. They've got Renan Lodi on their books. Last season, he was Atletico Madrid's first choice left back. Unai Emery, once formerly of PSG and Arsenal, is at Aston Villa. Julian Lopetegui, once manager of the Spanish national team and Real Madrid, is manager of fucking Wolverhampton Wanderers. And, well, we all fucking love it, don't we? We love it. We're the Premier League, baby. The football is so good. It's so special and it's so high quality. It's the best of the best. Wolverhampton Wanderers can't afford ex-Real Madrid managers because they're backed by some Middle Eastern oil nation. They can afford him because they rake in unbelievable amounts of broadcasting revenue from the league. And in turn, the league becomes stronger and better and more entertaining and arguably worth more of our money. And that's why I can't help but sit here and have mixed feelings about all of this. The financial hit for the average person in the UK to watch the national sport on TV each week is nothing short of disgusting. But how can I sit here and criticise the model that has given us the absolute pinnacle of club football and the highest week in, week out quality across the league the sport has arguably ever seen? Ultimately, the bubble will eventually burst. The pockets of the people of the UK aren't endless, especially in the current economic climate. There may eventually be a time where the average fan says enough is enough, and that 3, 4, 5 or more services to watch the Premier League simply isn't worth it. But until then, just who am I to really argue with the system that's in place? It's supply and demand, and when the public put their money down hand over fist each season and willingly pay the price for the league full of riches, superstars and elite professional football, then who am I to tell the Premier League, Sky Sports, BT, Amazon and whoever may be next to change their evaluation of the game? Oh look, a new season of Succession. Oh look, a new season of White Lotus. Oh look, a new season of Severance. Oh look, a new season of The Bear. Oh look, new season of The Last of Us. Oh, a rerun of a Simpsons episode and it's from the first 10 seasons. Oh, a rerun of a Futurama episode from one of the seasons before they brought it back. Oh look, the first 3 seasons of Community. Oh look, a rerun of Breaking Bad. Oh look, a new episode of Homes Under the Hammer featuring Dion Dublin. Yeah, that'll do. And while that's on, let me just scroll through TikTok real quick, just for one second.